All right, it looks like we have Chris and Will. Sorry, put on the screen. Chris, Will. Do we have Lloyd on? No. Or do we have Melissa?
Not yet,
Give
Patrick.
it one more minute. We do have a quorum though, so we can start, but I do want to give it one more minute. Thank you all for joining our special meeting, our September Kmac meeting. Putting up the Zoom. What's that? The Zoom call-in. The Zoom meeting agenda for tonight. And so I'm going to wait one more minute, but then we'll start. This is the meeting agenda for our special meeting on September 28th. All right. It is 7:02. I think I'm going to just start. Let's start with a roll call. We have Chris Bryden on the line, correct?
Yep.
We have Ruel.
Yep, Ruel here.
And myself. Do we have Lloyd? And do we have Melissa? I believe Adam and Larry were not going to be able to make it tonight. So with that said, we do have three, which is a quorum. A quorum meaning that we have three members that are on the call right now, or at least in the meeting right now, and we can actually make recommendations as we talk about, as we go through the projects that we will be hearing tonight. But the next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. And citizens' comments is a time that we will discuss anything that is not on the agenda tonight. So is there anyone that has any items that are not on the agenda for tonight? No. Do I hear anybody? I'm sorry if I'm just trying to manage you. There's about 20 participants, so I'm just trying to make sure that we have those people on. So if not, there are no citizens' comments for tonight's meeting. We're going to move on to the meeting approval of our meeting notes that we had on June 28, 2022. I'm going to put those up on the screen right now. We do have members Raul and Chris and myself, and we were all at that meeting on June 28th. So I don't know if you have any discussion with regards to the meeting notes that were done on June 28th, 2022.
I have reviewed them, Patrick, and they look correct.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Raul?
Yep, I second that.
All right.
All right, then I will make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from Tuesday, June 28th.
Seconded.
I have a motion to approve the meeting notes of June 28th, 2022 by Chris and a second by Raul. Any discussion or comments regarding that? Not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. And so we have three ayes. We have Chris, Raul, and myself, Patrick. Others are not on the call. Thank you. And those are now meeting notes that are approved. So with that, I'm going to go back to my media agenda. And so tonight we are going to hear 4 projects: 141 Purdue, 56 Avon, 6 Willow Lane, and 1643 Oakview. With that, we do have a system. If you've never been to a Kmac meeting, or at least a Kmac Zoom meeting, I'm going to put up sort of the process that we have. It's a little different, slightly different as when we are in person, but it's still all of these items apply. So first of all, what we will do is we'll have the applicant present the project. And then we will have a brief time that Kmac may ask questions to the applicant. At that point in time, after that point, the applicant answers the questions from Kmac. I open it up to the public. And at that point in time, the public can speak. At this time, we're going to probably have about 4 minutes per person to speak during that public session, as you would say. I will ask, it's a little different. We usually have speaker cards, but since it's Zoom, I'm going to ask you to identify yourself, state your name, your address, and if you wouldn't mind, provide some information in terms of how we may contact you, if projects go into continuance or notification of other Kmac meetings that are associated to the project. After that, those speakers could ask those questions and make those comments. I actually then ask a response for the applicant to respond to any comments that the speakers or the public may have. After that, I will close the public comment session and we'll talk amongst ourselves. And at that point in time, we may, Kmac members may address possibly the applicant or neighbors that are, or the public that may have some comments that or questions that they may have, and we will ask you to hopefully answer those if you are so called. And then at that point in time, we will make a recommendation in terms of the project. We only make recommendations. We do not approve or deny projects. That's really up to the county, which would be in the next step would be the zoning administration. Zoning administrator that would be assigned to the project. However, our recommendations are very meaningful to the planner and the zoning administrator as we make those recommendations. So that is our meeting process as we go through the project, and as I will keep reminding people in terms of timeframes and as well as just trying to keep the meeting moving. That said, the last thing I want to just mention is there are items that we look at the projects. There are some projects that are, I think there's one project that's a development plan. All the rest have variances attached to them. And you can notice them by the VR symbol or the lettering in front of the project description. But all of those will follow the general plan policies of the Kensington area, which is on your screen right now. I will read those so we can, these are the items that we will be focused on in our review of the project. So the first is to allow for the review of new residential developments that provide reasonable protection for existing residents in the Kensington community with regards to views, design compatibility, including building bulk, size and height, adequate parking, privacy, and access to sunlight. The second is the preservation of views of the scenic natural features, for example, the bays and mountains and the developed environments. For example, the bridges, city skylines should be incorporated into our review of the development applications. The third is the review of the proposed residential development for design compatibility with nearby developments. For example, building height, mass, mechanical activities, and provisions for adequate parking. The fourth is new residential developments will be reviewed against realistic impacts of privacy and sunlight on surrounding neighbors. And the fifth is in consideration a review of a non-residential development in Kensington that the policies above, the 4 policies above, we will take in consideration of that. The projects that we are going to review do not have that non-residential development, so we'll be just looking at the 4. And then, as I mentioned, there are projects that have variances attached to the projects, and these are the 3 variance findings that we are required to review, and all of them must satisfy these findings. For the first is that any variance authorized shall not constitute a grant of special privilege inconsistent with the limitations on other properties in the vicinity and the respective land use districts in which the subject property is located. The second is that because of special circumstances applicable to the subject property because of its size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings, the strict application of the respective zoning regulations is found to deprive the subject property of rights enjoyed by other properties in the vicinity and within the identical land use district. And the third required finding is that any variance authorized to substantially meet the intent and purpose of the respective land use districts in which the subject property is located. So with that, we will start to review our first project, which is 141 Purdue. This is a project, it's a variance project, VR 22-01021. The description is the applicant requests a variance and Kensington design review to allow a secondary front yard setback of 6'9" where 15 feet is required for the construction of a new single-family residence to replace an existing single-family residence, and a 7'11" front yard setback where 20 feet required for construction of a new carport to replace the existing carport. In addition, the applicant requests a 2'1", 2 feet, 1 inch secondary front yard setback for a 4 foot tall retaining wall, where 15 feet is required, a 5'3" secondary front setback for a 6 foot tall retaining wall where 15 feet is required, and a 9 foot, 1 inch secondary front yard setback for a 6 foot tall retaining wall where 15 feet is required. The application includes a request for a tree permit for the removal of a multi-stemmed Catalina cherry tree located near the southeastern corner of the subject property. So with that, the applicant or person who's going to present the project, I'm assuming that will be Joanne, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, Joanne, I will not share my screen anymore and allow you to start your presentation in terms of.
Thank you. All right. Good. Good. Well, thank you all for your efforts to review our proposal. I'd like to start with just a little background about the project, give a little framework, and then move through our proposal. So I came to this project a number of years ago when we first started and met with Ed and Kay. And Ed and Kay were very close to the previous neighbors, Paul and Vern, who lived at 141 for 65 years. And in my initial meeting with Ed and Kay, it became clear that one of their goals for the project was really to honor the neighbor's legacy and build a well-designed home that would be a beautiful addition to the neighborhood. It wasn't something like, I need 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. It was really more generous than that to the neighborhood, and really more like, this is something that we want to contribute to the neighborhood that we've lived in since 1994. So we started work on the project and working with the structure of the existing home. And some of you might remember that we presented this project to you in July of 2020. And that project proposal was consisted of remodeling the existing footprint of the existing home, and then popping out in the backyard and the front yard. It also incorporated the same carport that we are proposing now. And in that proposal, we were granted all of the same variances that are incorporated into this project. And the findings from the variances, and I quote, "This project does not ask for any grant of special privilege inconsistent with any other properties in the area." So those were the findings. This was an approved project with all of the variances that are in front of us now. So as we moved through July, after July of 2020, so the project actually went through, it was approved in June of 2021. It was submitted, you saw it in July of 2020, and then we developed the construction documents. And well, actually Kmac recommended approval to the project in June of 2021. And at that time, we then moved forward in development of the documents and getting all of the necessary information that was required, the geotech report, all the construction documents, the structural, all of that. And throughout that time as well, as we all know, we were dealing with a global pandemic. There were lots of dynamic things that were happening in the world. And as we came into the new year, we were really looking at all of those issues and really evaluating kind of the yield of the information that we had gotten, which was pricing from a contractor, which showed that it was quite expensive on this site to dig out underneath the house, and the foundation was complicated. And when you look at that, based on the square footage that we're getting, it just didn't add up. It just didn't make sense. The other thing we were looking at is kind of questioning, is this home a home that can accommodate remote work, a family, and that kind of thing. And we really felt that the best and highest use for this site and for this was to, rather than build down, was to add a second story. And so we moved forward with the design of that this spring. And I was appreciative of how the building accepted a second story, the way it stepped up the hill. We've got the carport, we've got the lower level, and then the second story seemed to fit in quite easily. So we developed that project, and we prepared the drawings, and we got it ready to submit. We felt like it was a really sensitive, thoughtful proposal that would be consistent with all of the other values that I've stated. So we submitted that in April of 2022, April of this year, this spring. And after we submitted the project, I met with both of the neighbors. I met with John and Eileen Kramer, and I'll just kind of go back to the reference of the here. I met with John and Eileen Kramer. They live in the house at 137. And then I also met with Eric Seawall and Jean Raymond at 145. And the neighbors expressed concerns about different issues. But there was nothing that really came out of that other than they would really like to see story poles put up to really kind of understand what the true impact of the design was going to be to them. So we jumped on that right away. We had story poles put up on June 2nd. Or June 6th. I had met with them in late May, I think May 28th, 29th. And so once the story poles were up, both of the neighbors expressed concerns about the property. And I'll just share the concerns from John and Eileen in this house were privacy in their backyard, and where they spend time, patio kind of space there. And then Eric and Jean were concerned about how far the project was going out into the backyard. So we kind of regrouped and with an effort to respond to the neighbor's request and to actually rework the building in order to accommodate their request and to compromise, frankly. So you can see here, this is where we moved the building. We removed 5 feet from the back of the building and we moved forward. We added 2 feet here. So the net length of the building is 3 feet less. And then on the upper floor, you can see that's the 5 feet that was removed. And then one of the requests from the neighbors was to move the building forward. And so we took the second story and it was moved forward 11 foot 4 inches, which was a pretty significant amount. And so we also, in order to provide and you can see here, this is the neighbor's house here. You can see the carport here. And this is the story pole that shows the line of the railing on the outside. And we invited John Kramer to come up and we mocked up the height of the terrace so that he could confirm what the view would be into his property. We also, I just want to say that really the orientation of this home is very similar to the orientation of the Kramer's home, and that is to see the beautiful views of the bay. It is not to look into another neighbor's yard. That's just not something that is something that we would want to do at all. So this is the view that we're wanting to capture. This is the orientation. And we were really in the design of our second proposal, you can see we've provided screening and a layering approach so that there's elements of screening between the neighbor and the property, and it's set back. The house and the windows are set back 8 feet and there would be screening there. Did you say, oh, Patrick, did you say something? Oh, yeah.
No,
so, yeah, so then the proposal that you see today, I'll just go, this is a panoramic from the street with the story poles. And you can see that our house steps up the hill, just like all the other homes along Purdue. It's deeply in the context of the neighborhood. I'd like to share one more slide that kind of shows the context, and that is this slide here. So this you can see is our roof of the proposed design. And you can see this is the red line is the property line. And we, would be allowed to build quite far back. We're definitely not doing that. We're wanting to stay in the size and scale and context of the neighborhood fabric and really be in sync with everything that's already happening in the neighborhood. So that's our intention. And, to summarize, we do understand that all building projects have some impact, and we understand, we've listened to the concerns of the neighbors. We've made a very concerted effort to adjust our design and to compromise in a way that would be sensitive to their homes and their positions. And so we're really sincerely hoping that people can really see that and that we have made a concerted effort. And I feel that, this is a thoughtful, reasonable design that really does work within the context of the neighborhood. And I think Vern and Paul would be very proud. And I think everybody else in the neighborhood will find that this adds value to their homes as well.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I somehow my technology is somehow not helping me right now. Thank you. I missed maybe the last portion of what you had mentioned, Joanne, but I think I will at this point in time. It seems as though we do have addition to the Kmac members. I believe that Boyd is also on. And I know that Melissa was trying to join, but I'm not quite sure if she's on right now. But that said, as I mentioned, Kmac members, if they have any brief comments or questions to the applicant, please ask them now. And I'll start out with Chris. Chris?
I was muted too. I have no questions, Patrick.
All right. I'll go with Raul. Raul?
I have no questions as well.
Okay. Lloyd?
Not for me, thank you.
All right. I don't have any questions at this point in time either. And I don't know if Melissa's on. If not, let's do this. I will now open it up, as I mentioned, to the public. I want to just get kind of a quickly show of hands, if you would mind, of how many people are going to
Just raise my hand.
just kind of give a little handshake. If not, okay, I see one. I believe that I know that John and folks as well. So that's 4, 5. Okay, 6. Leslie. Okay. Good enough. We'll try to do this because I know it normally when you have a when we're in person, it's a little easier to know how many people and who's going to speak. But what we'll do is I know that there's a.
I was going to say, if you could, Patrick, if folks can, at the bottom of the screen, there's a chat button. If you
I was trying
to chat button and put your name, address, and other contact information in there. We'll try and get you that way. If you can't get to the chat button, let us know, but that'd be the most efficient way.
Okay. Yeah. If not, we will, let's see. I am going to go with.
I think John Kramer's our first in the,
John
in the chat.
Kramer,
so John, let's go with you. You get first dibs there.
Yeah. So John,
following the rules.
I'm sorry. I was trying to look at my other email of the order, but I'm going to just allow you people in terms of the order, how that's going to go.
Oh, chat. And Patrick, do we want to put a time limit?
Yeah, I did say 4 minutes, so I think that's probably fine. So if you could
keep time. Thanks.
Yeah, now I'll need to share screen.
Oh, right. Yes. So Joanne, if you can stop sharing, then John can start.
Yeah, good evening. I'm John Kramer at 137 Purdue Avenue. I've lived in Kensington since 1989 and clearly appreciate the time and effort everyone's put in on this. And I just want to briefly outline 3 things. There are some problems created by the design. There are some regulations that we believe protect us, and we do believe there's a compatible solution that will work for everyone involved. I need to share, so someone else is sharing right now.
I don't think so. I'm not sharing, I don't think. Am I sharing?
I think it's,
I'm getting someone's screen up there.
yeah, Randy or Robert Rogers, maybe?
I don't believe it's me, no.
Okay,
Okay, there you
That
go.
was clear.
just opened up. So let me come in. Thank you. Sorry about the confusion. So I'd like to share the screen and start with some regulations that we think apply to the situation. This is the Kensington Code, and it is clear and unambiguous language. The purpose and intent of this regulation is to protect existing residents from developments that create value at the expense of their neighbors. To be clear, We do recognize the applicant's right to improve their property and are not disputing technical measures like floor area ratio. However, this design makes no attempt to minimize impacts. Notably, Joanne, the architect, never visited our property before submitting the plans to Kmac. And the resulting impacts will substantially impair the value and enjoyment of our property. To not be substantial, they would have to be considered negligible or inconsequential. And importantly, these regulations state that the applicant cannot substantially impair the value and enjoyment of the neighbor's property, not the house, the property. The property refers to both the house and the land, as everyone sees when they get their tax bill. So the applicant's project can't impact outdoor spaces in a way that substantially impairs our value and enjoyment. And finally, nowhere could I find in the regulations that it says if the financial returns are not satisfactory, you can ignore these protections. So let's take a brief look at what we believe is a good solution and what are the impacts. The structure is situated in a way that is problematic for the adjacent properties. At the back of the lot, at the highest elevation, obstructing views and invading privacy. And at the heart of the problem is this, where they situate the house. These are the same neighborhood Joanne showed you. These yellow lines show the houses in the neighborhood consistently line up to optimize privacy and not obstruct views. No one's building up and back for more favorable views at their neighbor's expense. And as the hill heads north and curves, it moves up, and that's why the houses move forward. Luckily, there's ample room down the hill to build a great house that's compatible with the neighborhood. There's room in the front, and they can build a single story in the back and have none of these impacts. So let's look briefly at the impacts of the design. As Joanne mentioned, in response to our concerns with the mesa middle, they revised the design. They made it bigger, they moved it closer, and they added the terrace. This change was made with no discussion with us. That's not collaboration. So here's what we lose from this design. Beautiful, protected views of Grizzly Peak, hillside terrain, open sky, and complete privacy. In addition, 2 offices and 1 bedroom lose their southern views completely and are replaced by a wall of windows looking down into them. I mean, how is this not a substantial impairment? In August, you guys had your view of the railing, and this is the terrace. That's me on the ladder. However, there was some important differences between our visits. And I frankly think the photos Joanne showed are somewhat designed to do the same thing, which is the railing is actually 42 inches high, not 60 inches high. It's 42 inches high. We spotted that at my visit, and that's her with the tape measure fixing it. Unfortunately, what you were shown was inaccurate and understates the impact. This is what they're gonna say. Now, admittedly, I took this from my roof, so it's a little further away, but this is the angle into our property. It's visible. We have photos from when I was on the roof of people standing in the yard that you can clearly see. So how is this not a substantial impairment? And frankly, painting some plans on the drawings don't help. The bottom line is this. This is a zero compromise design with no regard for the impacts on the neighbors. The obstruction of views and invasion of privacy in 2 offices, 1 bedroom, and our entire backyard substantially impair the value and enjoyment of our property. The Kensington Code clearly prohibits this type of development, and we hope a denial of the current plans will encourage true collaboration. And counter to what Joanne said, Vern and Paul would be appalled. Are there any questions?
Thank you, John. The next person in your group would want to speak.
I think the next person we've got in line is Ed at 139 Purdue.
No, I think actually, no, I'm going to have.
You've got a process. Okay, I was just calling him from the chat.
Earlier, they want to go into succession, and I was trying to pull up that email in terms of the names, but I couldn't do that. So,
yep. Hi, I'm Jean Raymond.
Right? Is it Jean?
Yes,
next? And then after Jean, it's I don't know who's next.
Eric. Jean, Eric, Elaine, and then the floor is open.
Elaine. Okay.
I want to speak too. I'm Randy.
Excuse me.
Randy,
yeah, you'll be able to speak. These 4 wanted to speak in succession, so you'll be able to speak. It's just that we want to keep this. Okay. They wanted to speak in succession to make the conversation, or actually make the presentation a little bit more clear. So please do that. I'll let you go, Jean, and then I'm sorry, is it Eric next, and then Eileen?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Patrick. Hi, everybody. I'm Jean Raymond. My husband, Eric Seward, and I have been Kensington residents for over 14 years, living at 145 Purdue. We're the adjacent neighbors to the south of the 141 project. We acknowledge the applicant's right to improve the property gifted to them if they respect the Kensington Combining District Code of minimizing impacts on neighbors and not impairing the value and enjoyment of their neighbor's property. Please note the blue color used for the language of the Kensington Code, as I will be including this code frequently to show how the proposed design for 141 does not come close to following this ordinance. A unique selling feature of our home and why we fell in love with it is the privacy and secluded park-like backyard. We spend a lot of time in our yard, gardening, having meals, or just simply hanging out, relaxing, and enjoying our serene natural surroundings. Unfortunately, the proposed design for 141 will destroy all of that. Slide. Thank you, John.
I go one way?
Next slide. One more forward. Thank you. That red outline is our house, and the red line where the representation of Eric and I are standing is our back patio and yard height. This has all been drawn to scale. And I'll just repeat that for a moment so you can take this in. This is to scale. The siting and scale of 141 will make it feel like we live next to a giant apartment building. And nobody wants to live next to a giant wall of an apartment building, especially not in Kensington. It will impact our sunlight and privacy, take away open sky and air from both outdoor and interior living areas. The three most common words we've heard from people who have viewed the story poles from our property are massive, looming, and monstrosity. We have a petition signed by 25 Purdue residents from 16 different households who are against this looming monstrosity, its scale and citing incompatibility with the neighborhood, how its hulking proximity invades privacy and takes away views, and the many variances it requires. Each of these factors sets a bad precedent and has a negative impact on the neighborhood as a whole. A prominent Kensington realtor said that this proposed design would be out of character for the neighborhood, and she's seen whole neighborhoods changed by oversized homes put on small lots. She asked, isn't the goal of the Planning Commission and Kmac to preserve existing neighborhoods and protect the quality of life for the homes surrounding new development? The current proposal for 141 Purdue is an incompatible, uncompromising, and inconsiderate design that benefits the owners at the detriment of the surrounding neighbors and existing neighborhood. 5 realtors have told us that this massive moving structure will reduce the selling appeal of both adjacent homes, lose prospective buyers, and decrease our property value by 5% on 145 and 10% on 137. In this neighborhood, that equates to hundreds of thousands of dollars, which I think you will agree is a substantial impairment in value. Another significant impairment on Eric and I is the location of 141's mechanical room, door, and vent, as they are 10 feet from our main living space. Nowhere else on this property would these noise generators be 10 feet from someone's windows. And I don't know if we should be assuming that the AC unit is here too, because it's missing from the plans. So all of these noisemakers should be moved to a much less intrusive location to minimize impact on adjacent neighbors. So as you have seen, this proposed design for 141 Purdue violates numerous Kensington Code requirements that protect neighbors. In light of all this, we ask that you say no to this design proposal, just as 24 other Purdue residents have. Thank you. Can I answer any questions?
Thank you, Jean. Eric?
Okay, hello, I'm Eric Seward. As Jean mentioned, we live at 145 Purdue. We love our home for its privacy, the tranquility of the street, the strong sense of community between neighbors. The applicant's first design for 141 Purdue was a beautiful one-story remodel of the existing home. That required a large number of variances, 7 total. Because it had minimal impacts on adjacent neighbors and the neighborhood, it cleared the application process with minor objections. The two subsequent designs have been for a much larger home with substantial negative impacts on the neighborhood. The incompatible scale of the design is over 50% larger than the neighborhood average. It's a massive, zero compromise design that sets unwanted precedents for Purdue residents. To be clear, 141 is not part of the Kmac Property Owners Association, which consists of bigger homes on much larger lots. 141 is the last house on Purdue that is part of the Berkeley Highlands neighborhood. The Berkeley Highlands neighborhood consists of smaller homes on smaller lots that are situated in much closer proximity to one another. This is the appropriate neighborhood comparison for the project. As a reminder, the owners plan to demo the entire existing structure, foundation, and retaining walls, scraping the lot to the dirt. This fresh start approach erases any grandfathered conditions that conflict with current zoning and building codes. This massive design requires 6 variances. 6 is a lot. The encroachments are not minor. All 6 of these variances substantially violate their setback. Additionally, 3 variances are for the positioning of retaining walls that could potentially kill code-protected trees. The approval of these 6 variances would constitute a grant of special privilege, especially since there are other design options available. This slide shows where each of the requested variances are located on the property. The pink areas show where the proposed structures violate the setback area. Green areas show where additional buildable area is located on the property, which would not require variances. We have mocked up what building forward and down could look like. Building forward could have less impact than the current proposal, so we are open to this, considering this option. The applicants have stated that they can't build forward and down due to soil issues. We've had a contractor and an architect view the site. Both stated that this seems inaccurate. An engineer we consulted noted that building down in front would decrease the depth of soil to bedrock, facilitating pier drilling. We requested the soil report that was conducted on 141 Purdue by the applicants, but it was never provided. Building forward and down will not only lessen the privacy impact on adjacent neighbors, but will also be more compatible and consistent with the neighborhood siting, as the proposed design's front setback is nearly twice the neighborhood average. Another option that would have minimal impacts on the neighbors and neighborhood is going back to the original 2020 design. We would agree to this design again without objection. Lastly, the priority clause states that Kensington combining district codes supersede the county codes. This means that even if the FAR or building height is allowed by county, it doesn't mean it's allowed in Kensington if it violates the Kensington Code's mandate of minimizing impact on surrounding neighbors. Considering all this, we ask Kmac to reject this current proposed design as it shows no meaningful compromise and significantly and negatively impacts surrounding neighbors and impairs the value and enjoyment of their property. Thank you.
All right. I think it's Eileen.
Yes. Thank you, Patrick. Hello, I'm Eileen Kramer. My husband, John, and I have lived in Kensington for 33 years. We raised our kids here, and we've lived at 137 Purdue since 2006. I'd like to thank the committee members for their hard work, and I'd like to assure you that we recognize the applicant's right to improve the property they inherited. We appreciated that the one-story design from September 2020 met the purpose and intent of the Kensington Ordinance. Regarding the one-story plan, the architect emailed our neighbor Jean saying, quote, "I think your privacy concerns are reasonable and can be accommodated. I am glad you like the design. I think it will enhance the street and fits the little house on the hill concept," unquote. I don't understand how the applicant went from respecting privacy concerns and neighborhood compatibility to the current design. These two-story plans are so aggressive, we almost can't believe they're being proposed. They take the little house on the hill and turn it into a looming structure with maximum very substantial impacts. There has not been a sincere effort to collaborate or address our serious and valid objections to these designs. Just a couple of examples. On May 26th, Jean and Eric met with the architect to voice concerns about the first two-story design. Her response was, if you don't like this, we have something bigger that you'll hate even more. I believe that's what we're looking at now. At meetings on June 20th and July 26th, the applicants responded to the suggestion of one story at the back of the property by saying, well, we're building a two-story house, and building forward at the front by saying, that's not happening. That's not collaboration. In response to our concerns about the first two-story design, the applicant made it bigger, moved it closer, added a rooftop terrace and some plants. As John explained when he emailed the applicant and architect in June, trees and plants do not solve our problem with this design. Soon, a statewide law will discourage planting within 5 feet of structures in fire zones like ours. The trees and plants in the drawings might not even be allowed. But even if they are allowed, they wouldn't mitigate the obstruction and the invasion of privacy created by the structure. We spent 4 years house hunting before we purchased our home on Bordeaux. We saw many beautiful houses, but the single feature that made this house stand out was its serene private yard surrounded by nature. Our backyard is unique and special. We love to sit outside, unobserved, looking at open sky, hillside terrain, and Grizzly Peak, views that are specifically protected by the Kensington Ordinance. From inside 2 offices and a bedroom, we enjoy those protected views and privacy. But if this design is approved, we would instead look directly into a 2-story wall of windows, and they would look right at us. When we sit in our yard after dark, instead of the night sky, a large lit up structure would loom over us. Privacy means being free from being observed by other people. From our perspective, the 2-story design is an observation platform. A number of realtors have estimated that a 2-story house overlooking our yard would decrease our property value by 10% or even more. I hope we all agree that losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in property value is a substantial impairment. It is just wrong to create views, increase your property value and your enjoyment by taking those things away from your neighbors. Please imagine what it would feel like if this was your home and this was happening to you. In conclusion, when designing a house, it must be easy to get swept up in the excitement of what you could build and lose sight of what you should build. And it doesn't have to be this way. The applicant has options. They could build a September 2020 design with our support, or we would be happy to consider other designs that take advantage of ample space toward the front and back of their property. Please deny this design and the variances so that we can start fresh and work together in true collaboration on a design that won't cause so much harm. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So who is next, Chris, on this? I'm looking at the chat, so.
Give me 1 second. I think next up we had, I think would be Ed. I don't think we've heard from Ed at 139 Purdue.
Ed,
Not yet.
Okay, Ed, it's you're up.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
And thank you also to Kmac for your participation. And we're glad that you came out to view the project, to get up and look and see the views, the actual views, not the views that somebody took from the top of their carport. My name is Ed Blons. Kay and I live at 139 Purdue, and we're in the unusual position of being a neighbor to 141 and also the owner of the property. The prior owners of 141 were like family to us. We were friends over the entire time that we lived here. We socialized with them, and then we took care of them during their final days. They were treasures. For the 141 property, we endeavored to design a beautiful house that would honor and serve as a credit to our neighborhood. We sought an architect skilled in this type of construction to design the home. Things moved forward, but then came the pandemic and its effect on the supply chain, work routines, contractor availability, a major disruption in most of our lives and routines, and the process was put on hold. It must be acknowledged that the 141 lot is in a Kensington neighborhood, not a wilderness area. So there will be neighbors, a major disruption. What can you do? Well, it's building on a property. But in this case, the neighbors for the north and the south, the sought after views being the Bay Area, and that's not being affected. Throughout, there was never any desire to infringe on our neighbors' privacy or the protected views. The codes regarding these aspects were read and followed. The initial one-story project became untenable due to the efforts that would be required to make that happen. We're talking about information from contractors and soil studies informing us about the excavation and soil removal and 63 piers of structure support that would be required for the basement and crawl space. It became clear that it made much more sense to build a second story with a simplified foundation. So that's what moved forward. And it included communications with the neighbors. We arrived at the current design that is now before you for consideration. This proposal is the product of significant design review and redesign as we received communications from the neighbors. We moved the house forward 5 feet to compensate to not have as much there. And then we changed the second story, moved that forward as well. We've created a design true to the county code about privacy and protected views. We ask you to consider the facts, not the emotions. Look at the other homes in the neighborhood and how they're situated on their lots and how the proposed 141 house is consistent with these orientations. The house that when you're talking about the house at 145, look, that's all the way forward. Most of that lot is behind the house, which they could build if they wanted to. We are situating our house squarely on the lot like most of the other houses. You look at that overhead view, which Joanne showed you on her slide 10. This really shows you where the 141 project as proposed is going to be. So as is often said, as owners, we have the rights to improve the value and enjoyment of the 141 property. An accurate finding stated clearly by the county and variances previously granted. This is what they said in section 5, maintaining the community's property values. This is their finding. New construction will usually increase the value of subject property. I don't know where they're getting their information from, which in turn adds to the value of the neighborhood and may also increase neighboring property values. This project will do just that for the neighborhood. I will defer to Joanne Koch, our architect, for specific questions about construction details. But you were there, you went up there, you looked at the roof, you looked in at the lot at 135, and you saw what you had actually seen from the terrace. And this was the edge of the terrace that's up there, not from inside the living space. From inside the living space, you can't see anything in that direction. So we listened to them. We tried to make it amenable, but we wanted to build a house. This is not a neighborhood house. This is a house that we are building on our property.
Thank you, Ed.
It's not designed by neighborhood is really what it comes down to. So thank you for your time. And I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Next up is Ann.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ann Scharf, and I'm with Village Associates Real Estate. And I'm quite active in the luxury market in Contra Costa County. Just here to let you know that I firmly believe taking away the privacy of 137 Purdue will definitely impact their property value by as much as 10%. The market has slowed. And when that happens, it probably would decrease it more than 10%, could be 20%. Luxury buyers have the option to go and find exactly what they want. And if one thing doesn't fit, they're on to the next. So I think that this is very, very important when it comes to the value of that house and its impact.
Thank you, Ann. I think next up is Leslie.
Yes. Hi, good evening. I'll be pretty quick. I've sort of listened to everyone from the neighbors to this proposition or proposal to listening to what the architect has presented and what the owner has presented. And I think Ms. Koch and Ed Blanc are equally emotional in their presentation. And it seems to me around the neighborhood, talking to other neighbors, not just the ones next to this project, there's some very real concerns that why does this project get so many variances when the rest of us have to follow the rules? And this one's some kind of special house. And second, I can't tell, but at first it seemed as if there was only one parking spot. It looks as if it's still just one parking spot. Parking is a huge issue. And we are very over impacted with cars, and neighbors fight over spaces. And I think anything less than 2 car spaces is a problem and should not be accepted. And so in my chat, I just wrote, I am very concerned that one house can be given so many exceptions to the rules, so that they can build a huge house that is double the size of most of the houses. Most of the houses on our street are 2-bedroom, 1 bath. And I just learned that we're part of Berkeley Highlands neighborhood. And I think this size of a house is just too gargantuan on that end of the street. And I don't think it's right that they should be given these exceptions when the rest of us have to follow the rules. And so I put that in as questions to this, and as someone speaking from down the street, that I think that the neighborhood needs to stay as a community with houses that are more or less the same size, they look the same from the street, and that we address the issues of the parking, the telephone poles, and issues with water and drainage. So that's my take on it, and I wanted to voice my opinion. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Leslie. And then next I've got Richard.
Richard. Okay.
Hi, my name is Richard Bordeaux, and my wife and I lived on Dewey Road since 1983. That's almost 40 years. And we've known Kay and Ed since 1986. They're honest, trustworthy, generous members of our small community and have played a major role in its success. And for the last 25 years, they've diligently worked on fire control measures on their property and the adjacent park. And more recently, Kay has managed the care and development of the 700-foot median strip along Purdue Avenue for several years. Her hard work has been acknowledged by residents and the road commissioners of the MPOA on many occasions, and we've all benefited from her skill, dedication, and her work ethic. With respect to the house design or redesign application, I'm so sorry that it's caused such an emotional response for everyone involved. But there have been many homeowners in our neighborhood who have completed very similar projects to take advantage of the view and add space to their home. I can even remember when Gunter Stent remodeled his one-story house adjacent to the proposed new Blondes house. Ultimately, they all benefited from the same enhancements that the Blondes family and many Purdue and Lake Street residents are seeking. I know that they have spent a long time planning this home and have taken into careful consideration input from friends and neighbors. I hope the Kmac will support their application and that old neighbors will again become good neighbors and resolve their differences. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Hey, Richard, what is your address?
2 Dewey Road. I put it in the chat.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right. Are there is anyone else in the public would like to speak?
I would, but my picture isn't up, but I would like to say something.
And okay, and you're Randy? Or
I'm Randy Weiss. I am at 149 Purdue.
149 Purdue.
I live 2 houses down from the proposed new building. So I want to say that this new building will not just affect the Eric and Jean's home or the Kramer's home, but my home, because I went out to my backyard today to look at the height of the story poles. And my yard is completely enclosed with total privacy. However, when I sit at my picnic table outside my kitchen, I can see the story poles. And as I move further into the backyard, I can see more of the story poles. And it's not something that I want to look at, this huge building, when I'm sitting outside. What I also think is that the current proposal is probably twice as large as what is on the property at the moment. It's a small house. I think it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. And they are proposing a 23 to 2,500 structure, which is quite enormous for the homes going south from where the Blondes want to build their new home. The only home that is really large is the one across the street that sold recently, but that's on a much, much larger plot of land. I also am concerned about the parking. When I am trying to back out of my own garage and driveway, because we live on the east side of Purdue, there is no parking allowed. So all the parking is on the west side of Purdue. And I have to be extremely careful backing out because I'm worried that I'm going to hit one of the cars. And there is almost no place left to park our cars on the street. It is a real problem. And I just want to, and then I'm also concerned about the number of variances. I can't understand why they can't build within the proper guidelines that are set out by Kensington and the county. So I am not in favor of this building as it is. I would be very happy to have a much smaller place. And I just wanted to share my opinions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Are there any others that would like to speak?
I have one thing to add about 144 Purdue. You just mentioned it, Randy.
So, yeah, go ahead. And I'm just going to let you know that I don't want other people then just coming in to speak more often.
All right.
But if you can make it short.
So she mentioned that 144, which came on for 2.4 and sold for 3.6, was an extra large house, but it's on a double lot, just FYI.
Triple.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to then, as I mentioned, the applicant can actually respond.
Patrick, I actually, sorry to interject. I actually have a letter from another neighbor.
Oh, that's right. So you can read that or actually just post it because I think it would be better.
I can read it. It's short. It's
okay.
Short. All right. It says, "Dear Kmac members, like many other neighbors on Purdue, we were concerned and dismayed to hear about the planned home expansion at 141 Purdue Ave. The proposed design's bulk, height, and expansion into the backyard will not only significantly alter the character of that relatively quiet portion of the street, but will negatively impact the privacy of neighboring backyards. When we have attended open houses in the area, we have always been immediately dissuaded from considering a property when another house is looming over its backyard. And we selected our home on Purdue based on the privacy of its backyard. At a time in the pandemic, when it remains challenging for many people to leave their homes more frequently, the tranquil sanctuary provided by their backyards is especially important. Permitting this design to go forward will set an unpleasant precedent for the neighborhood's character and negatively impact the quality of life of residents of neighboring houses. We urge the council to ensure that the design incorporates and satisfactorily addresses the concerns raised today by many neighbors on the street. Sincerely, David and Sunita Snyder."
And David and Sunita Snyder, where do they live?
They are located at 221 Purdue.
Okay, thank you. So that time, I think if all the public has spoken, the applicant, Joanne, if you want to respond to any of the comments that were made during the section, you can. If you could just that'd be good. I'll give, and then what I will do is close the meeting for the Kmac members.
I would like to have an additional minute say as well.
Me too.
I'm concerned that the concept of a petition was raised. which we have no idea about the petition. We have had other neighbors come to us about people coming to them, the Kramers, coming to them and telling them falsehoods about the project.
That's not true. Enough.
That
Ray.
is not true.
See, we don't have the,
let's
we
follow the
don't know who
process.
signed it. We don't know what was said.
Let's
and
follow
so
the
we're
process.
getting-
You'll have an
that's why
opportunity
I
to
want
respond.
I want you to consider the facts, not the emotion. Okay.
Let's follow the process,
Yeah.
and you'll
Good.
have an opportunity to respond to the comments that were made by the community.
Thank you. I
Patrick,
appreciate that.
Romney.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to share my screen, please. I would like to review and just respond to the neighbors and share my screen. I guess I can do that right now.
Yep.
Okay. So let's start with the untruths, because there were many untruths. Let's start with size, okay? It's untrue that this house is out of scale with the neighborhood. Let's just start maybe with the biggest house on the hill, 3775. That is your house, Eileen. That is your house. That is over 1,500 square feet, more than our house. You have like 3 houses in one. One of the largest houses on the smallest lots in the neighborhood. So to say that our 2,300 square foot home, which is in sync with all the other square footages in the neighborhood, to say that it's too big, I think you have to look at the size and square footage of your own home that you're living in, because it's just not true. This is reasonable. You can see here, 2,300 square feet, 1745. You can see 3,200. 1815, 1160, 2568. It is not true that all the big houses are on this side. It's not true. It's not factual. It's inaccurate. And I really hope that we can be honest and not spin this into something it's not. Okay?
May I reply to that?
It is not.
No,
I'm
no,
not.
no, we are not having anybody reply.
That's fine. That's fine.
I'm not done. I'm not done. That's the issue with size. That is just ridiculous. It really is just not in any way accurate or true. So we have to stay with the facts. We can't amplify things in ways that are just simply inaccurate. I want to share another screen that really gives you a sense of what the issue is. When you understand what really the impact is to John and Eileen's yard, the impact is zero. It's zero. Our house does not impact their yard. When you stand on the deck, when you look at the angles, this house looks straight into this area. And there's very few places on the floor plan where you can actually look right into their yard. It's just not, it's not factual. It's not accurate. It's not correct. And by the way, if we're talking about a neighborhood and density, all of you bought into this neighborhood. You all accepted the codes and the constraints. We are 7 feet, 6 inches below the allowable height. We are 450 feet below the 3,000 feet that we're allowed. So to say, I mean, you just look at it, just to say that this house and what we're building is out of scale, is preposterous, is looming, it's not accurate. It's just simply not accurate. This house, as you come up the street, is looming on the street, and no neighborhood do you want to park a 2-story house out to the face of the street. You don't want to do that. It's bad architecture. It's bad design. You want to step it back in a thoughtful way that breaks down the bulk. It breaks down the bulk. And if the issue is bulk, our design responds to that issue. Clearly, straightforward, thoughtfully, and correctly. So I'm really sorry that this has been spun into something that it's just simply not. It's not true. And it's not in my backyard. I don't want anything to happen. It's a neighborhood with density. And you bought into this neighborhood, and all that we're doing is working within the code. And I want to finalize with the number of variances. There are two main variances here. The first one is carports. And all of you know that there are carports all along this street, all throughout Kensington, that are in the front yard. I actually went around, and I have a document which I'm willing to share with you. I found 60 incidences, and we submitted this to the county when they approved our variance that showed carports in the front yard. We actually have a writing from the findings of our approved plans that says carports are a precedent to be within the front yard setback. And that's why that carport, it was approved. You all approved it. It was all fine. We're not asking for any changes in the carport. That's one of the variances. The only other variance that matters, and there's two variances that relate to architecture, only two. The others are retaining walls that hold up the building. So they're not architecture. They're retaining walls that hold up grade. So the other variance, there's two variances. The only other variance is working within this peculiar situation of a side yard setback that is a driveway. It's not a street. There aren't houses on the other side that look right at us. The orientation of the house at 137 is to the bay. The only window they have here, and you can see there's big screening trees, is from a laundry room, and there's nowhere inside their house where they can see this property. All of their views are to the bay. So I feel like this is an alarmist, reactive position from the neighbors that is unfair and unreasonable and should not be considered.
Right, thank you.
Patrick, I'd love to respond, given that
I am actually closing as I mentioned, closing the discussion to the public as well as the applicant. If Kmac members have questions to the applicant or to the members or the people on the call, they will ask them, but at this point in time, I'm closing it. As I mentioned in my original, how we structure our projects review. And so I will now open it up I will close it for the public, and we'll have the discussion within the Kmac members. So I'm going to start with Lloyd.
Hello, and thank you, Patrick. I don't know where to go initially with all of this. I know what it's like to feel as if the neighbor's project is looming so large over your own backyard and your own privacy, because I went through that. I know that we're not supposed to necessarily consider the previous design, whether or not any zoning variances were granted to it, because it's a completely different submission. The only thing it has in common is with that particular property. I'd like to hear from some of the other board members. I'm not going to voice an opinion about how I feel particularly. I feel that there is a lot of people who feel very strongly about the outcome of this. And, there are some things upon which reasonable people can disagree. So, come back to me. Let's hear from some of the other board members. Let's talk this out.
Great, thank you, Lloyd. Then I'll go to Chris.
Sure, yeah, my concerns are mostly with really bulk and size and privacy for the folks at, I want to say it's 145. right next door to Eric and Jean. Did I get that? That's you, right? So those are my primary concerns. And I think that is, again, I think it was said earlier, that's why Kmac was put in place. There are houses that loom over other houses. A lot of that happened before we were created. And the reason we were created was to try and avoid that. So I do think the way that the property is designed, it is to maximize size and scale. But the way that it's situated on the lot, I think it definitely impacts from a bulk and a size perspective, the way it's positioned. Now, I do think it could be moved forward. Now, there may be a cost associated with that, right? But I'm not looking at that. I'm really just looking at the impact on the neighbor. And I, you know, in all fairness, I wasn't as concerned about the impact on the neighbor across the driveway as far as privacy, but I was concerned about the view because I do believe the view of natural elements like Grizzly Peak, which is a very, you know, noted peak in the area, is impacted. So you would lose the view of that from their house, from their yard. So I think the size and bulk of it create issues on both sides for each neighbor. And because of that, I have a difficult time supporting it from a design perspective. I don't have an issue so much with the variances as I do believe they're structural based on building a house on that lot. You know, I think you could make some argument for it, especially for adjusting for a carport, which would be very common, something we would approve. But I don't think that the property as designed, or the building as designed is compatible with the Kensington ordinance for bulk, size, and impacts on privacy to neighbors.
All right, thank you. Ro?
Hi, thank you everyone for sharing your different viewpoints. I visited the site, I've spoken with the neighbors. You know, this is a challenging, it always is a challenging situation when you're dealing with something so personal. And I think, Chris, you said a lot of the things that I was thinking about this project. You know, I stood on the roof and I could just see this carport into the Kramer's backyard. I stood on the roof, or I stood in the backyard of the Kramer's, and I saw that Grizzly Peak would be blocked. I stood in the backyard of Eric and Jean's house, and I saw how the looming could impact their project. And there are a lot of elements of this beautifully designed building that are to code, that follow all of the Kensington ordinances. And then there are things that I also feel are impacted. And I think also, one of the things I do in my personal life is I'm a community engagement consultant for our project, and neighbor relationships are really important in these matters. And I think we need to respect our neighbors and listen to our neighbors and take their concerns seriously, and also come to compromise. And I think we can come to a compromise. And it's been interesting watching everyone's different perspectives unfold. But I think views are protected, and you will be losing that view to Grizzly Peak. And I think there is this bulk issue that would also, I think, impact my ability to support the project at this point.
All right, thanks.
Patrick?
I don't think Melissa has spoken, or is not here. I want to give my comments before Lloyd on this, because I may have a different opinion or view of this particular project as it relates to the neighborhood, as it relates to the variances, and as it relates to privacy and access to sunlight, as well as privacy issues. So I'm going to just start out with the variances. I will agree with Chris in terms of the variances. I find that these are the same variances that are in place now, meaning that where the existing house is, that's where it is. There is no way to get around that in terms of that. I believe that some of the variances based on that was based on items that may have been after the project was actually, or the building, even the existing building was there. So forth is the easement that's on that north side of the property. So with that said, I think all the variances, which are very similar or the same as the original one that everybody has felt like that would be a great one to start with, I believe that the variances are actually the same. And I would think that they satisfy all the conditions that we have of the 3 variances requirements. That said, with regards to privacy, I'm a little, I do see that there's, I do see some privacy issues with the Kramers, I mean, not the Kramers, the Eric and Jean's property at 145. And I say that because of the fact that there is some sort of privacy issue as it's looking into the backyard of that property. However, what I also see is that the way that that property is and where the house is located, it's very different, I will say, than the rest of the other properties. I think Joanne had showed that one screenshot where it shows where the property line is on the backside and how all the residences along Purdue seem to follow that same line. However, 141 and 140 and Jean and Eric's property are actually, especially Jean and Eric's property, is moved up forward, which means the backyard itself is bigger than all the other properties next to that. If they were to build out toward farther in the backyard, it would be very similar to 141 Purdue. So I understand that there is some sort of issue with that, but it's not consistent with the neighborhood either in that sense. What the Eric and Jean's house is, it's not necessarily consistent in terms of the backyard. So I understand that. I understand that all of you have, I will say that in terms of privacy on the Kramer side, I do, one thing that wasn't shown, and I'm going to show this because I think it might be wise to show this view. Let me get that view. Maybe I don't have it. No. I'm sorry, I don't have that view, but what I was going to show you was actually a view of on top. Roel had mentioned that we were at the we went to view from the rooftop of there it is, I got it. The rooftop of the 141 Purdue's carport. And this is what I saw. This is a photo that I took of the picture that I saw looking into the Kramer's area. And I was on a ladder as well to kind of represent what the floor height of the building would be. And I believe that yellow line is the line of the railing shown on the terrace. And to my eyes, I couldn't even see that.
That's the inaccurate story, Paul. That line is 18 inches lower.
So even if it's 18 inches lower, I still don't think I could see inside the backyard. And so all I'm just trying to say is I am showing a representation of a photo that I took. Now, I don't know if I believe that some of the other Kmac members also visited the roof of 141 Purdue, looking over to the roof, to the privacy issues that may be occurring at the Kramer's property. This is what I took a picture of. I will ask the members if they also saw similar or something different, but I was not able to see into the backyard at all from the property. I was able to see, I will show you, I don't need to show you a photo of what I did see from the Kramer's house from their house to the building or the story poles. It did show, I couldn't see where the windows or anything would be, but as Chris had mentioned, Roel had mentioned, there was a view of Grizzly Peak. So I will say that that particular view may be obstructed, but I did not, that did not seem to me was a large part of everybody's conversation. It was mostly privacy, bulk, and size.
Can I add a brief?
No, I need to be able to talk. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there are definitely challenges on this particular project and how it faces all the neighbors. I see the changes that change always makes changes tough to take sometimes, and especially as it is your own house or houses that you are a part of. However, this committee, we do look at facts. We do look at bulk, size, privacy issues, and we do look at the needs of the applicant, and whether or not we like to have to say that we would like to have compromise. Sometimes compromise isn't always the case, or maybe there's parts of compromise that happens. But whatever we do, it's not normally a collaborative design. It's mostly a design that was provided by the applicant, and the applicant is the one that actually is going to provide the proposed project. It is Kmac's desire for us to be able to disseminate all that information and make choices or make our recommendations based on what we know, based on items that we see as more factual and more thoughtful, more factual, and not necessarily in terms of based on how large a project is comparedly to your own property. We look at how large the project is compared to the size of the property. And that's why I believe that this particular property and this particular project, even though there's an understanding, there seems to be an understanding that the project is very large. In fact, it does need to be under the FAR required from the county, so or requested by the county. So I do have one question though, and this is in regards to the percentage of decrease in property values. And I believe that Ann Sharp, I need to ask you this question because I just want to understanding how the 10% is calculated. Meaning, is it 10% calculated based on the existing building, or is it 10% calculated on the project that is going to be built?
No.
Meaning that, let me get this right. It is always my understanding that property values are based on, in most cases, the neighborhood that they sit in or the area that they sit in. And so is the understanding that the 10% is, if that 10% is of Jean and Eric's property values, is that their property values will go down by 10% because of a brand new project that's being put in? Or is it 10% of what is existing right now? I'm just trying to understand what that means, because I don't know what Eric and Jean's property value is, but I'm trying to understand if it's 10%, let's say it's $1 million, then 10% would drop at $900,000. Is that what you're saying? And so if that's the case, if the building that is being proposed is being built to a certain size of what they're proposing, is it 10% off of that? So they will actually be, by building that structure, which will be a bigger house, has more rooms, has a great view, probably will be more expensive than the existing structure is right now. that is at 10% from what?
Can I talk now?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, thank you. No, and actually, I think it's more than 10% in this market. When I actually was over there looking at the story polls, the market was much more active. This was about 5 months ago, 4 months ago. And now I think it could be as much as 20% down. You can't, you know, when you're talking about the prices that people are paying for these homes, both homes on either side of this property, people are now, interest rates just got raised to 5.1 today. And this is making everybody, it's harder and people are more choosy, especially on 137, which is a luxury property. Everything has to be right when you're in this $4 million, $5 million price range. And it's could be 20% at this point. When the market was moving fast, that's when you can sell things, and maybe it would only take a 10% hit, but I believe it'll be more now in this market.
So just get it this right.
This house were to be built.
With the building being built.
With the building being built.
So it's going to drop their prices 10%.
Absolutely. I think 15% is really, I mean, honestly, that's what I think. Not having the Grizzly view view, and also having the privacy, the loss of privacy. When you have people peering in, and I know that they have said they can, you know, do plantings. In Orinda and Moraga, they do not allow you to plant anything within 2 feet of your house because of the fire ordinance. So there won't be any privacy plantings going up there. I'm sure of it. So no, I think it's a huge hit on both sides. Definitely.
So how much do you think the proposed project might be to sell for?
Their 2,300 square foot house that they're building. I haven't seen the finishes, but I would say, you know, a brand new house, 2,300 square feet. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see the finishes. I can't really comment on that.
The value of the home there in 141 doesn't matter. It's really the impact on 137 and 145.
And the one
what I'm trying to get at is understanding the 10%. That's what I'm trying to get at. So
10% is 10% of the value of 137 and 10%.
So if the value of
it's going to increase their value. I mean, I would think a new construction that's 2,300 square feet with views is probably going to sell somewhere in the $1,000 to $1,200 a square foot. So you can do the math.
So what would that be then? About $2 or $3 million? $2 to $3 million? Okay. All right. I just wanted to understand that just because I would think there would be something different if that project was built.
But they're increasing their value where the two neighboring values are getting decreased by this project, for sure.
Okay, well, you are the expert on that. You know, I'm a little concerned only because the house across the street probably sold for 3.6, and it sounds like that
3.6, and it was on a double lot.
So I'm just trying to say that it seems like just by that selling of that house, it could actually increase the value of both the neighbors on the other side, just because it's in the same neighborhood. That's all I'm just trying to get at. I'm just trying to understand that 10%.
That house is already sold.
I understand that. I'm trying to understand the 10%. So, okay, good enough. I'm going to go back to Lloyd.
Oh, I don't have anything further to add at this time. Actually, after listening to you speak, Patrick, I mean, how could I follow that? I just, you know, if it's not an issue with regard to variances per se, then are we going to use the Kensington ordinance to give the neighbors essentially veto power over the development plans of the property owner? And what, you know, how do we balance that?
That's right. I mean, that's the hard decisions that we have to kind of understand other projects that we've reviewed in the past of how we review those. And it's not necessarily based on, I'm going to say, opinions, or so it's really based on what we see, what we have looked at on other properties, and how that actually gets incorporated into our recommendation. So all I'm just saying is that's how we usually view our process. This particular project definitely has become much more than that. You know, as I had mentioned, we have change in Kensington. We all live in an area that we live very close to each other, and that's the way it is. And we try to live as comfortably and as well with each other. And at certain times, it may not actually come to pass as that. So with that, I guess I don't have anything else to say. Lloyd, Chris, Rel, anything else you have to say?
No, I'd just add, I think one other thing you pointed out, which was helpful, Patrick, the size of the property, or the size of the planned development, is not out of character with the lot. So you're right, the size is fine. So the 2,300 square feet or whatever it is within reason within the lot size and what's in the neighborhood. So again, I don't have issue there. I don't have issue with the variances, because I think they're realistic for the size, shape, and topography and what's already in the neighborhood, et cetera. And I think parking, again, is, well, unfortunate, is not something the county's going to regulate. I think they'll only require one space, if I'm not wrong. Doesn't matter how big the house is anymore, right? Because it's within X point of public transportation. So parking's not really concerned. Again, my two would be just bulk and view, and impact on privacy. And again, I do agree with you 100%. I look into my neighbor's kitchen, they look into mine. I look onto their deck, they look onto mine. I don't have curtains in my kitchen, they don't theirs. It's a great Poupon house. I say hello to them every morning. You know, so I don't know there's an absolute expectation of privacy in a neighborhood like we live in. But I do think that when you're talking about a full back, you know, view of somebody's full backyard, I think that is a significant impact on privacy. So that's why I do think that I think there's an opportunity to maybe go lower in the backyard. Do some other things. Yes, you could go back, but you could go, you know, instead of single story or double story, single story, there are ways you could accommodate. So my only recommendation would be, and put it out there, is it's up to the property, and we can make a decision today, and it moves you on, and you go to the county, and you go to the next court of argument and start all over again, which is okay. Or do you want to take it back, and maybe that would be my only other recommendation. Based on what you've heard, is there anything else you'd want to change? If not, let's take we're willing to take a vote on it today. It moves you to the next step, right? Gets you through it. Our feedback goes on to the county. So that would maybe be my only comment, Patrick, is if Ed and team wanted to say, listen to what they've heard, take one more shot at it, or if it's just what they want to stick with, and that's okay too. There's no right or wrong answer. You just want to move on to the next stage.
So Chris, one question for you.
Yeah.
When you said privacy to the backyard, which
Sorry, 140. I know I got to get there. 145. You know, and I know it's a larger yard. I get that. But the way that the property sits with the second story there, it really does look down into their backyard. You'd lose that. And not only that, it's a very bulking. So it's not only the privacy piece of it. Sure, I can put some windows and shades in, and maybe I'm not looking down. But it's also, you look up now and you see sky. You would look up tomorrow and you would see building. So that, to me, that again, that's an issue of privacy. It's an issue of view of the natural and its sunlight. But it's all of those things. That's my challenge with it, is the way that it goes back and up in the back.
So even though that particular building is not in keeping with the rest of the neighborhood, at that street.
I get it. You got to work with what you have, right? I think there's an opportunity. What we always look at, right, is you look at the lot. I know, and you know, I can say that because I'm not the person running the project, but you could move it forward. You'd have to put some pilings in. I know that's a cost issue, but it could be done. We always look at the lot as a blank slate and say, okay, could you move it forward? Could you move it back? And I think you could in this case, and it would lessen the impact to the neighbors at 145. And I think you could come down on height, which would lessen the impact, right? If you made it a long property. I also realize that for Ed, you know, he wants the view, and that's a fair request for a property owner, right? So there may be an opportunity to mitigate it some. I don't know what that is, but right, that's our opportunity, is either take it on face value, vote on it, right, and make a recommendation to the county, or give Ed the opportunity of taking the feedback from the community and take one more shot at it.
All right. Good enough. Ro, anything else you want to say?
Weren't there limited windows on that back side of the house overlooking Eric and Jean's property. So there's no one who's going to be really looking down into their yard from the house itself. It's more that the building structure itself kind of blocks or is imposing above their yard. So no one's really going to be looking down into their yard. It's just the building itself is blocking the openness.
Yeah, I think on the side you're right. You're on the side you're right. On the back it is mostly windows, so they could look out. There's a little bit of a privacy issue, but again, I think it's more the bulk and access to sunlight and the sky above.
But even if you move the building forward, you're still going to have bulk.
You're going to have some, yeah. I think again, it's the.
I'm just trying to figure out
it's a tough one. I'm not.
Yeah, it's hard because their house is also so far forward on their lot.
Yep,
right?
That's right.
Yep,
exactly.
Yeah, the existing condition.
Yeah,
exactly.
No further.
All right. So Joanne, as Chris had mentioned, there's a couple of things you could do. You've heard our conversations with Kmac. You can actually go for a continuance, think about it, come back and present again, or you can have us make a recommendation, whether or not it's recommending approval or recommending denial. That's one thing. The other thing is we only have 4. So that puts us in a situation where it could be 2 and 2, which means that it could be just a recommendation that it moves on, and that's what our recommendation is. So I'm just giving you all the kind of answers. If or it could be 4-0 either way, or 0-4, whatever you want to say, or 3-1. I'm just saying there's many different things. Whatever you decide, you can move forward, and whatever happens in terms of if we do make a recommendation, it will then go to the zoning administrator in the county. All of you that are participating in this particular meeting on this project will have an opportunity to actually speak at that, no matter what. And you will be notified by the county when that meeting will happen, and it will happen. It usually happens probably within the next 2 months if we make a recommendation tonight. So that said, I'm going to put that up to Joanne and Ed.
Well, I'm unmuted now. Yeah, we've already moved the house forward and made adaptations. I think this is an excellent design, and I'm willing to put it up to Kmac to vote.
Okay. All right. So with that said, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
How does it work? That's my first motion.
You make a motion, you could say a motion to deny or motion to approve.
Oh.
And then there'll be a second. And then if there's, comments for that motion, we will put that in there. And then at a certain point, we'll vote.
Okay, this is a tough one. I will make a motion to deny this project just based on the blockage of the views of Grizzly Peak, because one of the things in their ordinance is the protection of views. And so I am concerned about that being blocked.
Okay.
I'll second.
So I have a motion for denial for the project number. I don't have that right in front of me right now, for 141 Purdue.
I'll second.
And we have a second from Chris. Do we have any comments or with regards to?
I would just agree with what was already been said, is that I think it's the impact of view of Grizzly Peak, which I think is called in the ordinance, and the bulk of the property, the bulk of the project where it's situated currently.
Okay.
Its impact on 145. Okay. So
I'll make a comment on that, and then we can vote. In terms of so the clarification is that recommended denial due to the view to Grizzly Peak from a neighbor. Mentioned what's the address?
137.
147 Purdue.
No, 137 is the one which I think has the view.
Okay, 137 Purdue.
Yep.
And bulk
at 145.
And the bulk as it relates to 145.
Correct.
Purdue. All right. Clarification. All right. Okay. Are there any other comments on that?
Well, if it's appropriate, I would say that I would be opposed and recommend voting approval. I don't think that the problems stated are sufficient to extend a veto power over the plans as submitted by the applicant.
All right. Thank you. So we're making again, as it sounds like for Lloyd, right now it's a motion for denial in regards to the view of 137 and the bulk as it relates to address 145. All right. All those in favor of denial, say aye.
Aye.
Show of hands.
Show of hands. Say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All those opposed, raise your hand. Okay, so right now we have Raul and Chris approval for a motion of denial, and we have Lloyd and Patrick as I should say disapproving of the denial. So to your point, to Ed and Joanne, we have a 2-2 split, and so we will give our recommendations based on that, and you will move on. So I would do this probably tomorrow or within the week. I will let the county know what our recommendation is. And then you probably might be best to follow up with your planner and see how quickly you can get on the zoning administrator's calendar. And for those who are participating in this meeting for this particular project, you will receive some notice in the mail notifying of this project to be heard in Martinez.
Patrick, briefly, for just in terms of parliamentary order, the motion to deny was a 2-2. Does there now need to be a motion to approve that will still ostensibly have that same 2-2?
No.
Okay.
We will yeah, that would have been done during our discussion, and so we go with that. Okay. Good enough. Thank you for those who are part of that. I know there's 3 more projects that were needed to speak. I know this is taking longer than we want to, but definitely the issues on this project has gone on for the last 2 years. So I think it was time to get to this point. With that, I'm going to call up the next meeting member, but with that, we have gone 1 hour and 45 minutes, and I wouldn't mind if we had a 5-minute break if people wish to take it at this point in time, and then we'll resume with the project. With the project.
Want to make that 8:55, Patrick?
Yeah, 8:55. We will resume with 56 Avon, and then we'll go to 6 Willow, and then we'll go to 1643 Oakview.
Thank you for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you. We will resume back in 5 minutes. 8:55. Okay, let's see. 8:55 is Chris on, Lloyd on, Earl, I see her. Wait another minute before they put on their cameras.
Patrick, how does one become part of Kmac?
Excuse me?
How does one become part of Kmac?
Sign up. Sign up.
Yeah.
We are, as you would say, a volunteer.
Be careful what you ask for.
No, we are appointed by John Joya, Supervisor John Joya. Robert Rogers is in waving right there, part of John Joya's Supervisor Joya's office. And the best way is to send requests to him.
Yeah, cool. Fascinating process.
All right. Okay, so it looks like Lloyd and Chris and Earl are on, and myself. So let's continue with 56 Avon with David Phillips, I believe. So David, you're on. I will stop sharing my screen.
All right, and I'll share mine. Zach Reimland is my architect. He's wherever. So in waiting, should we need him?
Okay.
Let me share my screen. Let me know if you can't see that. All right. So, hi, my name is David. I live at 56 Avon Road. We have lived here for about 3.5 years, and we love it here. And so, what I'll be brief. There's a lot of slides. Don't worry, but I'll go through them fairly quickly. So, what started for us as a kind of a small landscaping thing turned into something that we thought we believe is really going to be quite nice for us, and we think add to the value of the neighborhood. So I will describe those things. Patrick, did you need to read the thing about like what the actual request is? I don't know if
we've got it.
You got it.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, I think I didn't read it. I'm sorry. I should have done that. I've been somebody's
fine for me.
If you can stop sharing, then I can
sure
put that up. I made the error.
All good.
So it's 56 Avon DR 22-01042. The applicant requests approval of the variance in Kensington design review for the construction of a new approximately 100 square foot covered front porch to existing single family residence with a 6 feet 1/4 inch setback from the front property, where 20 feet setback is the minimum, and for the construction of a new 400 square foot second story rear deck at the rear of the existing single family residence with a 3 foot side yard setback, where 5 foot setback is a minimum. So there you are. That's the information or the description of 56 Avon.
Back to this. Okay, you should see my screen right now. So we're going to talk about a few things: front porch, driveway rail. I'll get to that, back deck, and then concluding thoughts. Okay, here's the front porch. Here is our house. I guess to the top is north. To the left is the Edmund property, looking downhill west. East is to the right, and south is to the bottom. So you see Stratford Road coming up there on the bottom, going uphill to the right, and then that's Avon kind of bisecting vertically this picture, and our house is in the green. Okay, so I'm going to start just with like what it looks like now as of a couple of days ago. So this is the front, kind of Cape Cod looking house, flat facade, except for the kind of the lip on the left side with the garage, white picket fence, and driveway. This is from the side. I'll talk a little more about that rail. You see that the driveway and retaining wall area is little bit dicey. I'll get to that in a second, but that's just another shot. And this is our road. This is Avon Road looking north. And I can come back to any of these if you'd like. Okay, so this is how it is now. You see the main house on the right third of this drawing. The area that is enclosed by the picket fence is in red. Our proposed front porch is what's in green. That's not drawn to scale, but it's pretty, like I did that, but it's pretty darn close. Here is kind of the tricky part about this. The road, so Avon Road is the blue line all the way to the right, but that is not our property line. Our property line is that faint little dotted line that goes kind of a little diagonally through the front yard. So when Patrick talks about, you know, like it uses the 6 foot variance, oh, wow, that's really close. But it's actually like, if you say like from the front, you know, from where Avon Road actually is, it's quite a ways away. And of course, we discovered this as we got a site survey done, and Zach says that this is, or our surveyor, sorry, said that this happens, this sort of arrangement. So that's what that looks like. And then just a little bit closer, you can see, again, just pointing out that the area, the width, I guess, of the porch, actually quite small relative to the yard, and pretty far away from blue Avon Road. So this is what it'll look like. You know, if you want during the Q&A, you can ask Zach to describe kind of how this works with the aesthetic of the Cape Cod house and the neighborhood. But a pretty low profile design. You'll see that the asphalt roof shingles are going to match our big roof, and then the shiplap on the siding will also match what is on our house. The shiplap being, that's the design of sort of the bottom portion of the porch. And then there'll be a nice covered kind of entryway. There actually used to be an entryway. There's actually holes there for some sort of cover. So we're really just bringing it back to what it was, in a sense, right? At least that part. This is cross section looking from north south. Come back to that if you like, but again, pretty low profile. This is from the other side. This is from the driveway side. This is from south looking north. And you'll see it's kind of a smaller profile just because that's coming from the edge of the house here, which is actually the garage, which is a little bit, protrudes a little bit from the house. These are our neighbors, our immediate neighbors. So our neighbors across the street are, these are all our neighbors across the street. So I provide these just so you can see if this is or is not aesthetically consistent. We believe it is, because there's a lot of variation on our on our road. And then this is what it looks like looking back at the house. So our two neighbors, the ones to the left and the right, they're both of the houses are kind of sunken in. So really you can only see a fence and then a garage. And you can see what that is. So really you can only, I guess the other thing to point out here is that those structures actually come quite close to Avon Road, right? Both of them do, whereas it's the fence on the right or the garage on the left. Okay, so here's kind of the summary according to, I guess here's our case. Enhancement of neighborhood aesthetic. We think that kind of bringing out the porch would be a nice variety rather than the mostly flat front that is there now. I talked about consistent with the neighborhood's aesthetic, neighborhood being quite varied, but I think it does, for me, like clearly fit within the overall Kensington aesthetic. Enhancement of neighborhood connection. This is really, I mean, the reason why we're doing this is so we can connect with our neighbors. Every Friday afternoon on Avon Road, down the street, our neighbors meet Friday at 5 o'clock. We know all our neighbors. We walk around, they walk around, and we envision ourselves saying hi to them, sitting on the front porch. That's the idea. We think it'll help our neighbors' values. There's no view impact. And I went to all of my neighbors, all the immediate 8 neighbors, and 8 out of 8 support both the front porch and the back deck. Okay. And then this is just alignment with Kensington design values. I think I took this from the Kmac website somewhere, but you can see no impact to views, no impact for light and solar access. Privacy, if anything, it will increase our privacy and I guess the future because the porch kind of covers up a little bit that front window, which is our kitchen. Parking will not impact parking. Noise levels, none except for construction. And then compatibility regarding bulk and scale, we think it's compatible. Okay, driveway rail. This is part 2. So this, we don't need, I'm fairly certain we don't need a variance for this. The county asked us to submit, like just this week asked us to submit this drawing because we're proposing to put a rail on the, to cap the retaining wall on the side of the driveway and then put a rail there because it's a hazard. And when I take my 3-year-old in and out of her car seat, we have to be careful not to fall off that 3, 4, 5 foot drop. So hence the rail. So we do need a permit for this, but we don't need a variance. I'm not sure. I'm kind of presenting this just in case, really. Here's a cross section. Here's what it would look like. Stainless steel rail. Zach and our engineers did a really nice job with this. And I'll come back to the, sorry. So you can see the left there. I mean, it's a huge hazard, right? It's also a very narrow driveway. So we're really kind of shimmying when we get in and out of our car, just as kind of like an obvious thing that needs to happen. Okay. And the last piece is the back deck. Okay, so this is the same drawing of current state with the back deck overlay on it. I'll come back to this in a moment, but just to orient you. So to the right is the front and Avon Road and the house. And then to the left is a backyard. All the way to the left is the Ebmud property on Berkeley Park Boulevard. And then what's in green here is what we're proposing to build out. Really nice second floor deck that extends. It basically, I'll show you in a moment, but it basically extends from a kind of small like staircase / balcony that already is there. I'll explain what that means in a moment. Okay, so this is our backyard. We just can't wait to get this thing landscaped, kind of letting it grow out in the meantime. So you can see on the left, there is an existing staircase that goes up from the first to the second floor. So what we're going to do is extend that little platform out, and then that becomes the deck that goes on through basically like, I don't know, 75% or 3/4 from the left to the right of the house, right? So it doesn't span the entire length of the house, but about 3/4 up until that kind of that first big window, if you will. Another view, helpful. This is just looking the other way toward the Ebmud property. So you can see that our neighbor is Ebmud, and they don't care. I don't see them in public comments. So I don't think they care too much. And as I said, our neighbors to the right and left, we have big fences, there's trees and all that stuff, and they are like fully okay with this design. This is another thing, or just another view. Back to this if you want. And this is again another view, look from north looking south. So this is what it'll look like. It's I don't really think I need to describe much of this. Second floor deck, it's 12 feet in depth. And then below it, we're hoping to create kind of like a cool, like indoor-outdoor room sort of thing. So you can, work outside, but be covered from the sun. Another cross section. This, you can see how it's going to come up from the existing staircase on the side. And we're just kind of extending that. And then to make the whole deck aesthetically consistent, we decided to replace the existing kind of railing that's on that staircase with glass. So it's white, white trim to match the rest of the house, and glass, so we can see out, and we can see Mount Tam from our from the kitchen, really. And now we will be able to see from the deck, which would be nice. And let's see, what is this? This is just looking from the other way. Here you can see on the right, you can see that railing, and then the left cross section of the back deck. A couple more photos. This is the pathway looking down. So one could, if one looked very closely from the front, see part of the deck, right? You would see maybe the little glass part, but very minimal. And then this kind of gives you a sense of, well, here's the staircase that would be extended. And then this is from the staircase. You can see, I don't have a great picture looking into my neighbor Claudia's. We can currently see her a little bit of her back, her kind of patio area. And this would not affect that, right? We could see in the future what we can see now. So that's that. And then back again, just to reorient you, kind of extending the current staircase or that landing, and then moving into a deck. So align with Kensington values. This is the same slide as before. We don't think that we're in violation of any of these. Include them. That's the same slide. And this shows you all of our neighbors who have proactively said, yes, we support both the deck and the back deck and the front porch. Sent them all the plans, got a proactive yes. This is a passive yes. This is everyone said, we got it, go for it, no problem with it. And last thing, this is the bench. This is the bench that everyone sits on at 5 o'clock on Friday afternoons. So, I'm not trying to take their, take their gathering, but we do hope that our porch will become a gathering place for neighbors. That's it. And I have some other photos if you want to see them, but I'll stop here.
Right. Thank you, David.
Welcome.
Any brief comments or questions from the Kmac members? Start with Chris. Anything?
I'd just say it looks like it's in line with, really this is a variance request, right? And both look to be within the three findings for a variance. So I don't see any challenges at all. And I think it looks like a great project. And I appreciate all the green marks that you took into consideration. Your neighbor had those discussions. It really helps.
Thank you.
Roll.
No questions.
Okay. Lloyd?
Yeah, pass. I'm good here.
Okay, I'm good here too. So I'm going to open it up to the public. Is there anybody who would like to speak on this particular project, 56 Avon? Okay, I take it no. And David, if you have any, if there's no comments, so I don't know if there's any response, but I think you pretty much said it all in terms of your process. All right.
Yeah.
So at this time, I'm going to close the meeting and talk amongst ourselves. Raul, we'll just go with you first.
It looks like a great, thoughtful plan that takes into consideration your current design aesthetic and neighborhood scale. And I see no problem with it. It looks wonderful, and I hope it would help you enjoy your property better.
Right. Lloyd?
No, I think we're all good.
Okay. Chris?
I'm good. I'm ready to make a motion if you'd like.
Sure. I just want to say I'd love to come over to your house, go to your neighborhood. It sounds like a really fun place to be on Avon. So let's do that. All of it.
Well, we've been to Avon Road before.
Don't come empty-handed, though, Patrick.
So do you want to make a motion? Go ahead.
I will make a motion to recommend approval of 56 Avon BR 22-01042 in that the two variance requests meet the three findings to support a variance for this project.
I'll second that.
We have a motion from Chris. I won't repeat what he just said, but definitely it's mostly recommend for approval for this particular project, and we have and the project meets the 2 variances that have been offered. And I have a second from Lloyd. Any discussion based on that? If not, all those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
No. So it looks like Roll, Chris, Lloyd, and I all are in agreement, and the project is recommended for approval. David, so as I mentioned to the other group, you know, I would I'll make a note to the county and probably contact your planner and see how quickly you can get on the zoning administrator's calendar.
Great.
All right.
Much appreciated. Thank you all, and thanks for adjudicating all these or offering recommendations. It's quite a valuable service. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks.
We will go to our next one, which is, I believe, 6 Willow Lane. 6 Willow Lane, DP 223028. The applicant requests development plan and a Kensington design review approval for the proposed conversion of an unconditional crawl space within a existing single-family residence into a conditioned living space, resulting in a gross floor area exceeding 2,700 square foot threshold. The project also requires a variance approval for a 3-story configuration where 2.5 stories is a maximum allowed. So with that, I think it's Doris or going to be the one who's going to present. I will stop sharing. I know that.
Hi, yes, my name is Doris Pyle. I'm the residential designer for that project. I believe the homeowner, Rebecca Yang, would like to introduce her project.
Okay.
Yeah. So hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Yang. My wife, Stephanie, and I moved to Kensington about 2 years ago. Born and raised in California, went to Berkeley, and we are both in our mid-30s and feel that we've found our forever neighborhood here. It's been such a delight living here. Our dog absolutely loves having room to roam throughout the courtyard, and she's very afraid of the deer, but it's been such a warm and welcome 2 years for us. Like, we love our neighbors and we love standing outside and chatting with them. Stephanie mother is disabled and is bedridden in Washington, D.C. with her father. Her father is considerably older than her mother. And so we believe that within the next
5 years,
maybe 5 years, we're going to become her permanent caretakers. And so part of the impetus for taking on this project is to prepare for a future where we are going to be taking care of Stephanie's elderly mother. I think also in the description, it said that it was like a living space enhancement, but this is actually an ADU. So I believe that the 2,700 square foot variance request is not applicable when it's an ADU, but I will let Doris clarify that because I do not know the laws nearly as well as she does. We did prepare a very short deck.
Five slides, we promise.
Yeah, just 5 slides. So we're going to share it really quickly.
And I can help tee it up. So we currently have, our current house is 2.5 stories, but the story beneath the 2 that we currently live in is actually an unfinished basement space. So we'd actually like to convert that and build it out into an ADU.
So
I just get that.
Yeah, so this is where we sit on 6 Willow Lane. It's a relatively small lane, but I think one of our neighbors, I know it's quite late, so Anne, if you're still on the call, thank you so much for staying this late with us. But we are the house highlighted in yellow there. And so this is just a quick snapshot of what the space currently looks like. So that the kitchen you see, that is, here it is structurally sound, but we are hoping to build underneath that space in order to fortify it, but also make that the guest room or the space where my mom would live in. And then finish this basement area that you see in the image to the right, and then excavate a little bit behind that current brick retaining wall in order to have more living square footage. So this is some of Doris's handiwork here. So if you can see, the top 2 areas are where the current living space of the house. So we are proposing that in the current unfinished basement space highlighted in green, that we will turn that into a bedroom, a small living space, and a small bath, as well as build a deck that extends a bit out into our backyard. And then hopefully we'll landscape the backyard as well. It's currently just a pile of dirt and leaves, but we are hoping to turn that into a space for our dog to be able to enjoy the backyard, and for us to also enjoy sitting with tea and coffee in the morning or a glass of wine in the evening.
And that
is it.
Doris, we can pass it over to you.
I believe you've pretty much covered it all. Okay. I did also want to add that in seeking the variance, we apparently triggered the request for the variance because we went over the 2.5 story rule. However, in this case, we're not proposing any additional height to the building, nor massing, really. We're utilizing an existing unconditioned crawl space. And by doing that, we will not be impacting any neighbor's view, really anything visible to any neighbor. It also, I believe, makes best use of that space because ADUs, of course, are allowed and highly sought for our state. But rather than use existing open space in the backyard, we're using the existing unconditioned space. So I just feel like it was best used of that space, provides the valuable housing. From the uphill side, there's no visual impact. I think that about sums it up.
Right, thank you. Any comments from any brief questions from the Kmac members?
I'm sorry, I had one more point.
Oh,
I did want to question and potentially refute the write-up that did suggest we were triggering the lot allowance. As an ADU, my understanding is that square footage should not be counted as an ADU, by the state mandate.
Either way, the FAR just triggers a hearing. It actually doesn't require a variance. It's just a recommendation. So it's a floor area ratio based on the size. So either way, you're probably within what would be okay.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, two of them actually triggered. One is over square footage as the whole building itself, and 2 is the 3-story for the variance.
Right.
So they still trigger it. It doesn't. It would be different if you were under the square footage and had no variances. We wouldn't even be hearing this particular project.
Fair enough. Okay.
Okay. And yeah. So good enough. Any questions? Brief questions from the Kmac members?
No, I think I understand what's going on.
Great. Ro, no?
No question.
Chris?
Nope.
All right. Open up for comments from the public. Do we have any people that would like to speak regarding 6 Willow?
Our neighbor's on here. And she direct messaged me and said she wished to comment, but can't find out how to do so.
The damn mute button.
I think there's a mute button on the bottom. Who is the person?
Delk?
No.
I'm unmuted.
There you go.
I'm unmuted.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hear you.
Okay. Thank you. I've been waiting a long time. My wine tasting started at 7:30.
Oh.
I've been in my house, but I've been going down occasionally and sipping. So I hope I can read my statement. All right. My name is Ann Stevens Delk. I have lived at number 4 Willow Lane since 1974. The house at number 6 was built in about 1938 by the same developer that had just finished number 4. Like most homes built at the time, number 6 had 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. In the 50s or 60s, the owners added a 2nd story with additional bedrooms and a bath and enlarged the kitchen, supporting the addition on 2 wooden posts with footings 1 story below in the backyard. Parenthesis, exclamation point. The new owner, a real estate developer, the next owner, a real estate developer, real estate flipper, had 1 interest only when she bought and sold the property about 5 years ago. Rebecca and Stephanie are wonderful additions to the neighborhood. Building an apartment in the basement is a logical upgrade, especially considering the small lot sizes and outrageous property values in Kensington. The home is on a steep down slope, and the addition will be totally out of sight from the street, with no change in the current roof line, unobstructed to neighbors, and necessary seismic upgrades will be made to the foundation and support walls. I am completely in favor of this conversion. However, if the owners start leaving their 3 or more Bayview carts by the curb 24/7, 52, instead of in their driveway, I will ask Kmac to start considering Contra Costa County Ordinance 72-2.006 for all of Kensington, including the Avon property and every other one that has been discussed tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ann Stevens. Anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, so I will allow either Rebecca or Stephanie or Doris, if you want to respond to any comments that were made during the public session.
No, I think she nicely summed it up and supports the project.
I think she actually did a better job than we did. So.
All right. All right. So at that point in time, I'm going to close the meeting to the public and talk amongst ourselves, talk amongst the Kmac members. Starting with Lloyd, do you have any comments?
No, I don't, Patrick. I it's inside the envelope of the existing home. Rock and roll. So
good enough. Chris?
I second that. This is in line with other variances we've approved when folks have done 3 stories by digging down, and it makes good space, use of the space, and it doesn't impact the neighborhood by not impacting the envelope. So great project.
All right.
And appreciate that you're supporting your family.
Earl?
No comments.
No comments. I'll just make one comment, and it's kind of a response to Chris, and I'm hoping that Robert Rogers is listening on this one. We've had these similar types of situations where the applicant may go down or actually stay within the existing envelope, but stay within the existing envelope, no height or anything adjusted. And we make a recommendation for approval, and somehow it's denied at the county, saying it's a 3-story building. It's not, and for us, I think that's a shame, only because Kensington, the way that the ordinance was written, really encourages this type of development. So all I'm just trying to say is I think this is a great project as what it does. One, it provides more, I'm going to say, more space for the applicant, as well as converting this into an ADU, which is even A plus, if you want to put to that. So I'm just saying that and mentioning that only because we're being recorded, and I just want to make sure that the county zoning administrators understand our position with Kmac with regards to this particular project and the 3-story variance. So with that, do I hear a motion?
I will make a motion, and it actually is a variance. It says it's a DP, but I guess we'll call it.
Well, it's a DP because it's over the square footage, but the variance, you can have a variance, but for whatever reason, it's not called a variance project. So.
Roger that. Okay, so I would make a motion to recommend approval of 6 Willow Lane DP 22-03028 in that it meets the 3 requirements or 3 legal requirements for a variance.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I will second. Ruel can second that.
Okay.
I can see.
That was a tie. I'm not quite sure. I'm going to say Lloyd right now. So Lloyd seconds it. So I have a motion to approve the project at 6 Willow Lane. It also meets the 3 variance requirements as mentioned. And I have a second from Lloyd. So any other comments with regards to this motion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye, and raise your hand. Aye. All opposed? Okay, so roll. Chris, Lloyd, myself, all affirmative or recommend approval, and no nays. So as I mentioned to the other applicants, please contact your planner probably this week. Hopefully I will send a notification to the county this week and to get you on the calendar as soon as possible. But thank you, wonderful project. A great place to, I think it's wonderful what you're doing in terms of providing new housing, especially for your mother, Stephanie. I think that's great, but just creating and developing the plan within the envelope is very consistent with the Kensington design ordinance. So thank you.
Very good, thank you.
All right, now we are toward the end of this meeting, I hope, and we are now going to speak to our last meeting item, which is 1623 Oakview, VR 2722-1046. The applicant requests approval of variance for a 12-foot 6-inch front setback where 20 feet is required, and a Kensington design review to allow for a new approximately 145 square foot uncovered deck above a garage and driveway of an existing residence. No change to the gross floor area. Project planner to determine if side yard shall have minimum 3 feet pursuant to the code 82-14.004. So with that, I think it's Ian.
Yeah, good evening, commissioners. Thank you for being here a little bit late and listening to our project. Can we share my screen? I would just like to walk you through the site plan really quickly.
You'd be right at the bottom in the middle. There's a button that says share screen. If you click on that, it should.
Okay, there we go.
And then you can either share the entire thing or pick the one you intend to share.
I would like to share this right there. Hold on, let me move this.
There you go. We see the plans.
Yeah, so let me move this a little bit. Yeah, the basic idea, my clients, Lee and Nick, have been longtime Kensington residents, and they've, like the other applicants we've heard tonight, they love their neighborhood and really enjoy participating in the neighborhood social life. And what they would like to do is extend their living space in the front of their house where it's warm and sunny, to create a deck that's kind of an extension of the kitchen and dining room and provide a friendly presence on the street. And to do that, we wanted to create a modest deck, but big enough to put a table and sit and read and have lunch or whatever they'd like to do. But given the nature of the lot, it would extend about 7 feet into the front setback. It would still leave a setback of about 12 feet at the shortest point and a little bit more like 15 feet at the longest point. Part of the impetus for this is the fact that they have a small lot for this zoning area. It's a 4,400 square foot lot. I think 6,000 is the minimum standard. And as you can see, their backyard is kind of small. And it's also very dark, and there are a lot of trees in the backyard that shade the backyard, make it less pleasant to sit in. Plus the house being on a north-south axis, it's pretty much shaded by the house itself in the backyard. So they would like to enjoy the light and the sun in the front and have a nice place to sit and see their neighbors. It's really, I think, a modest request we're making tonight. And it has been supported by the neighbors that our client has talked to. We would really, try to do a semi-screened front deck with the metal railing, somewhat similar to this, not exactly. This would be the front view from the street. There really aren't any issues of privacy that I can see because the deck would extend on the side of the neighbors that just has a driveway there. So they're not looking over anything terribly private. It's just the driveway where they park their car. And that neighborhood has actually sent a letter of support. I don't know if the commissioners have been able to read that. I think it was sent or copied to Patrick as well. I think she sent it to the county commissioners or zoning administrators. But she was very supportive of the project. I think we can meet the findings here. It's nothing special in terms of what neighbors in the whole neighborhood also enjoy. We have we did a survey of the whole area. And in fact, we found so many areas right in the nearby neighborhood where all the neighbors have outdoor seating areas in the front yard. There were quite a few garages that were right up to the property line with the roof deck on top. I think we would be more modest in the sense that we would still be back about 12 feet from the street. So we're not asking for anything that the neighbors aren't already enjoying, in many, many instances in the immediate neighborhood. And I think we saw that in some of the other, or at least in the 56 Avon presentation, there were many front setback seating areas as well. So I don't think we're making anything, of an unusual request in that sense. And as I said before, we have a smaller lot than normal. The backyard is rather small and shaded. And it's also difficult access from the kitchen and other common areas. You basically have to walk through a long hallway right through the master bedroom to get out to the backyard, or down a side yard, down some steps, up some steps, through a gate, kind of a narrow side yard. So the access is not great to the backyard either. So, you know, the last finding would be basically also, you know, meeting the intent of the zoning district. And I think, you know, having our clients enjoy light and sun and open space in their front yard would be appropriate in that sense also. I don't know if you have any questions for us, or I think our clients would also like to speak and talk about their ideas and motivations. So I'll pass it over to Lee and Nick at this point.
Thank you. This is Nicholas Wellington, and we bought the house in 1998 and have lived in this neighborhood very happily since then. The one drawback that we have with the house is that the backyard is very shaded and the only access to it is through the bedroom, whereas the front yard is light and sunny, but we don't have access to it. So this is a request for a modest balcony off the living room. We like the idea of the sun and the light. I have spoken with the immediate neighbors. No one has objected. They have all said, everyone that I spoke to has said how they think it will be a very nice addition. At least two have written letters of support that I'm aware of, though I think to the zoning administrators. I'm not sure if they've come to Kmac. And as Ian referenced, this addition, I believe, is completely consistent with numerous other houses in the immediate neighborhood. And I therefore request that you grant the variance. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could also say there's no loss of parking, no change at all to the parking situation. There's a fully covered legal parking space inside the garage, and then room for one car in the driveway, and that won't change at all. We will be going right over that space.
I'm Lee. I just wanted to add one or two things. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here late as well. Yeah, we've lived here 24 years. And for me, well, for both of us, but for me, I mean, that's been a missing piece, which is an outdoor area that we could enjoy around our kitchen. And we do go all the way to the back of the house through our bedroom to a darker yard. And so we'd like to stay in our home. We love our neighborhood, have a wonderful community here, right by the farmer's market. And that, you know, it's just it's a beautiful place to live. And as we are getting older, we would love to have that kind of outdoor area. And we have some neighbors who hang out in the front of their yards, and it's very sweet. So yeah, we are hoping you will help us move this forward. And I think that's about it. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm sort of open it up to, I mean, maybe I should ask questions, brief questions to the Kmac members. Lloyd, Chris, Rule.
I don't have any.
No questions, Patrick.
Rule.
No questions.
All right, I don't have any questions either. I'll open it up to the public. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Nope. Okay, so I guess, Ian, if you have any closing notes or anything like that, you can wish to say them now, or you can just, I'll either that or I'll close the meeting to the public and talk amongst ourselves.
Well, I guess the only thing is they just want to create a friendly social space that they can enjoy, level in and out from their kind of common eating and cooking area. You know, and I think it will enhance the street, actually. I think eyes on the street, friendly presence, it's all good. I think it's a, you know, it's a great way to utilize this space. It would otherwise just be a driveway. And I think it's a much better use of the space over the driveway than it's just being a driveway, for example. So I think it's a
Can
modest...
I add just one more quick comment?
Yeah.
Sure. I think people can see us. I know that, but if you can see our kitchen, we love our kitchen, and Ian designed it a number of years ago. And so we're really sure he's going to make something beautiful for us in front of our kitchen. So just thought I'd show you that because we love it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Lee. All right. At this time, I'm going to close the meeting to the public and talk amongst yourselves. So I'm going to actually have one comment or item just to start out with. Everybody or there's been reference to people writing to people in favor of the project. And I did get, and I think I might have sent it to the Kmac members too. I did get a comment from Rodney Paul and his wife, Sarah, supporting the project. So I don't know if they are the ones that maybe had expressed that they were writing, but I received that at least for your particular project.
I do have another letter that I could share on my screen if you wanted to see it, or
well, you can share it, or you can just just share it on your screen. That's fine. Quickly.
Yeah.
And,
okay. It's from our neighbor to the east who would have the driveway that the deck would look over. So let me see if I can make this a little bigger.
yeah, right now we're seeing the floor plan, so I think you have.
Oh, okay. I don't know why it doesn't come up.
You have to hit the share.
You can't see it.
Then,
well, I guess I can't.
You hit the share screen again, or stop sharing, and then you hit the one that you're going to look at.
Oh, here we go. Does that come up?
Right. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. This is from the neighbor just to the east. So, how can I get this to be a little bigger? Yeah, that's visible for everyone.
Right. Yep.
Anyway, they seem very supportive and like the idea.
All right. Thank you for sharing.
Okay.
Claire White. All right, as I mentioned, I will close the meeting to the public and talk amongst ourselves. So I just mentioned that. I have no concerns. I think the project does meet the variances requirements because of the fact that they are very in the neighborhood. There are other houses that have elements in their front setback that are less than 20 feet. So I am completely supportive of that, as well as the activity that actually is going to happen in that front yard setback, which I think is wonderful to hear about your plans with that. Very similar to, I believe, 56 Amont that we just listened to. So as a gathering space, or at least a place that you all can be outside and welcoming your neighbors at the street. So that's my thought. I would be solely supportive of the project. Lloyd?
I agree.
All right, Chris?
Yeah, a quick walk up and down the street. There's several other houses that, it's funny, I think they're actually faux decks off the front of their house, but same purpose and intent. So, I mean, you're actually matching I think the two houses to left of you and the one to the right of you by putting yours will be a real deck, which is probably a better use of the lumber in the space. So no, great project, and I think it's well in line with what we've approved from a variance perspective of things within the front setback.
And Ro?
I agree.
So do I hear a motion?
Lloyd, you didn't make one today, so we're going to count on you.
Yeah.
Oh, I closed the window with the agenda on it. Hold on.
All right, I'll help you. We'll make a recommendation. We'll make to recommend approval of 1623 Oakview VR 22-01046.
Chris makes a motion to approve, recommend approval of the project at 1643 Oakview. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll. All right. Any comments regarding the motion? Excuse me. Okay, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye and wave your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so Chris, Ro, Patrick, and Lloyd have all recommend approval of 1623 Oakview project. So as I mentioned to the other applicants, I will send some notification to the county this week. And so I would hopefully that you will follow up with your planner and hopefully get you on the schedule as soon as possible. So with that, I think, thank you, all of you, especially Ian and to join this meeting and hopefully concluding this meeting. But thanks for your patience.
Hey, yeah, thank you for having us so late. Thank you for serving. Thank you.
All right, so you guys, you know what's next, Lloyd, right?
Lloyd, this is your chance. You don't even need to read it. Come on.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, motion to adjourn by
at 9:52.
Lloyd. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, we got a second from Chris. And any comments, discussions? All right, it is 9:52, just to let you know. So there's been a recommend for a motion to adjourn and a second by Chris. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Raise your hand. Opposed? So Chris, Ro, Patrick, and Lloyd, we adjourn at 9:52. Thank you all for staying in there, being patient, all your thoughtful comments throughout the evening. There were 4. Hopefully, this is a longer meeting than normal.
So that's it for 2022, right? We're done.
What happened to
I don't know about that. We got a couple more, I think, but definitely we're here. And thank you, Robert.
Thanks all. Good night.
Doing that.
Good night, everyone.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.